I can almost guarantee that when we fall into our emotional eating tendencies, we are not consuming even half of these foods and nutrients during that time. Hello, hello, lovely. You are listening to the Love Life with Court show, and as always, I'm your host, Courtney. If this is your first time tuning into the pod, well, welcome to the family, and if not, here's a warm welcome back. Without further ado, let's get started on today's episode. Hello, love, and thank you for tuning into today's episode. As always, I hope you're having the most amazing day. Today, I'm really looking forward to our topic. It is probably one of my favorites to discuss lately because it is so relevant to my current journey with eating, overcoming eating disorders, and building a stronger relationship with food and my body. I do want to touch on if anybody finds this topic a little bit triggering, possibly discussing destructive behaviors surrounding eating and eating disorders, unhealthy habits, and so forth. If you're at a place where possibly you're not able to handle those types of topics at the moment, I would strongly suggest that this episode is not for you. But for those who want to stick around, awesome. But yeah, I completely understand if this is not the episode for you, if you're on a different healing journey. For those who are going to stick around, to get more specific, our topic today is going to be emotional eating versus eating to regulate emotions. And although they sound quite similar, there is a huge difference in the two. Emotional eating typically stems from one's personal body image. So no matter what emotion is triggered, it typically comes from the underlying beliefs that you have towards the way your body looks and feels. So emotional eating can be triggered when you're happy. It can be triggered when you're sad. Be triggered when you are angry, really any emotion, but it does typically relate to any underlying beliefs you have towards the way your body looks and feels. But when it comes to eating to regulate your emotion, what if we could do so by embracing our natural body type and shape and relinquish this idea of what our body should look like, falling into emotional eating habits and shifting to a perspective where we eat to regulate our emotions and to really prevent the habit of emotional eating. There are many emotional triggers that are related to emotional eating, and because many people cannot process this emotion, they typically shut down and go emotionally numb, or what I have personally experienced, which is an eating fog. What emotional eating typically looked like for me at one point is I would just literally fall into a fog. I didn't want to talk to anyone, and all I wanted was my favorite foods and TV. TV was a must. I wanted to watch something. I wanted to have additional stimulation. However, when I was done, I usually didn't realize how much I had eaten as well as how I felt. And after, I'm sure if you can relate and you've had binge eating disorders or just habits of emotionally eating when you feel emotionally triggered, you usually feel like shit after it. So how am I working towards personally changing my emotional eating to eat in a way that regulates my emotions? And what I really want to emphasize before I get into how I'm doing that is the whole purpose of learning how to eat to regulate emotions is our body is so interconnected with our mind, with our gut especially. And typically, a lot of our emotions, you think about being hangry, it stems from not properly fueling our body. So what I have really embodied and embraced is a way to eat and fuel my body so that my emotions are regulated and I no longer feel the need to emotionally eat. Although that is easier said than done, let's first consider how foods can regulate our emotions. This all stems from the nutritional influence of your brain chemistry. Omega-3 fatty acids like fish and flax seeds improve your mood by supporting brain function. Vitamins and minerals like vitamin B and vitamin D are crucial for mood regulation. Amino acids like meat and eggs are essential for neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine, which have a significant influence on our roller coaster moods if we're not ensuring that we are getting enough amino acids. Probiotics like yogurt promote a healthy gut and produces mood-regulating neurotransmitters. Complex carbs and fiber stabilizes blood sugar levels, preventing mood swings. And hydration, good old H2O, is essential for brain function and can result in irritability and poor concentration when you become dehydrated. And for some, this may be common sense. You may already know about this and fueling your body properly. But for many of us, including myself, at one point, maybe I knew a little bit about this, but I definitely was not prioritizing how I could nutritionally influence my brain chemistry to regulate my emotions. I was more focused on how can I get the weight off? How can I get skinny? And what I didn't realize is that I was not paying enough attention on fueling not just my body, but my mind properly. So I was actually sabotaging a lot of progress I was making because I was not properly feeding myself. And in result, I would go into binge eating and also emotionally eating because my emotions were a constant roller coaster that I really could not control. So where I started personally was learning, okay, what do I need in my diet? And I can almost guarantee that when we fall into our emotional eating tendencies, we are not consuming even half of these foods and nutrients during that time. And more than 50% of the people I know who emotionally eat are most likely to do so when they are significantly lacking nutrients and heavily reliant on an inconsistent calorie deficit, just like I was not long ago. So the simple answer is before you begin eating based on your emotions, consume the foods that support your emotional regulation. And that's like the quote of the day every day. Before you begin eating based on your emotions, consume the foods that support your emotional regulation. Now, if it was this easy, emotional eating wouldn't really be a thing. Binge eating would not really be a thing. So I want to share the toothpaste method with you that I heard that completely changed the way I look at emotional eating and my relationship with food. I'll first just go over a basic overview, and then we'll really get into the connection between how we can look at a toothpaste tube and how we can look at our bodies. So not long ago, I was listening to a YouTube video about being able to eat more food and how eating more will actually help you lose more. And at the time I was like, that does not make any sense. And the woman, I'll try to tag, if I can find the video, I'll tag it in the show notes below. She was explaining how a vast majority of women in the world, and it's no surprise, including men as well, are actually under eating even when they believe that they are meeting their calories or going over their calories. And she had explained the toothpaste method, which was, think about a toothpaste tube. It's brand new. It's full of toothpaste. You're not really going to worry about how much you're letting out, right? And the more toothpaste that's in there, the more that's coming out. Now, when you get to the end of that toothpaste tube, you're kind of just really squeezing it out and making do with what you have. And that is a very metaphorical way to look at your body, your digestive system, and your gut. So the more food that your body is getting in, the more that it can use those nutrients and get rid of what it doesn't need. Now, when we fall into starvation mode and when we start these habits of binge eating, emotional eating, not able to regulate our emotions, finding foods that will give us quick fixes, our body is then like a old toothpaste bottle or old toothpaste tube that barely has any toothpaste in it. And you think about when you're using that, you kind of just make do with what you have. You're brushing your teeth with just a little bit of toothpaste because you need a new bottle. Now, you can't get a new body, but the way to look at that is that when you are under eating, when you are not eating the foods that properly nourish your body's just doing as much as it can with what it has. And this is when you maybe become very constipated, you have bloating, you have gut issues, and you're thinking to yourself, why am I not losing weight? I've barely been eating. Or why am I going up? I've barely been eating. Well, you're falling into that starvation mode. And obviously, I'm not a nutritionalist, but this is something that I learned that completely changed how I look at eating and how I feel my body. And anytime that I fall into a starvation mode tendencies, because I used to heavily be on a low calorie deficit and most of the time barely eating. So I did a lot of damage to my body, and my body really didn't know what to do with what it had. So I was having stomach issues very often, and it is taking me a lot of time to heal my body from the abuse that it's endured since the beginning of high school, probably even earlier than that, and in middle school. Why I'm sharing this with you is because I'm sure you've been in a similar place where you have fallen into the habits of depriving your body and abusing your body. And I don't want that for you as much as I'm sure you don't want that. So I'm sharing this in a way that these are things that I've learned that have helped me overcome my own eating disorders. If you can take a little bit more from this episode, this toothpaste idea or metaphor can really be applied into all facets of your life. And typically, like we said, emotional eating is not really related to the food, but what that food is doing for us. And it's typically suppressing emotions that is going on in our external and triggered by external. So when you think about finding balance in your life, avoiding overexertion, and even something like neglect consequences, if a toothpaste tube is not properly maintained, toothpaste can become stuck or wasted, and neglecting our health can lead to something very similar, right? Where our body is just kind of in this stuck mode. It doesn't know what to do with the food we're eating. It begins with really analyzing what's going on and where do I start. And for me, the best place to start was regulating my emotions through food instead of eating when I become emotional. So that's really today's episode. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you could take something from it. And yeah, that's about it. I love you all so much. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. And I'll leave you with this, a friendly reminder to not only be kind to others, but also to your beautiful self.